We are thrilled tonight to have Thomas Connolly with us to talk about his stunning new exhibition. Judging from the number of red dots on the wall, we're not the only ones who are absolutely in love with this show. Thomas Connolly is known for his realist architectural paintings, and those paintings are well represented in the show. However, the show also contains looser, plein air landscapes and some beautiful figurative work as well. Connolly received his BFA from the Maine College of Art. His work has been in both the Portland Museum Art and the Center for Maine Contemporary Arts biennial exhibitions. Thomas participated in the Maine College of Art by St. Marie residency program in New Edinburgh, Nova Scotia. He received his BFA from the Maine College of Art, and he has received the Pallet Knives Foundation grant and the Sheldon Berg Award. And with that, I will turn it over to Thomas.
Well, I've been hoarding up these paintings for about a year and a half. Some of it's studio work, some of it's plein air painting. And it's nice to see them all together again. They've been in a pile in my basement. These are the landscape pieces that are done more quickly. They take about an hour to do. I drive somewhere, there's a spot in Cape Elizabeth. I'm not trespassing, and there's a good view, and that's a nice combination to find, because there's not many places like that. And I've been doing that scene for quite a couple of decades, I think. This is a view from going over the bridge back into Portland. It was done about 6 months ago in March, and I've always enjoyed looking over the bridge. I usually have a camera with me and take pictures. And then in the studio, I project the image. I draw it out on the panel, and then fill it in like a coloring book. So it's pretty simple. And this hard part is there's a lot of adjusting to do once the colors are filled in. And I'll go over here and look at this painting. This had a certain quality to it. And then I took those yellows and I made it just a little bit smaller, from a 1/4 inch down to 1/8 of an inch. And it made a big difference in how the painting changed and balanced. And so most of these are like that, just a lot of adjustments. And I know what I want to do, but to do it doesn't always work out that way so much. And I would love to have a question if anyone has a question.
So, Thomas, in your artist statement about the show, you talk about. In the artist statement about the show, you talk about painting at dusk. What is it that draws you to paint at dusk as opposed to any other time?
Well, at that time of day, the sun is lower. The colors are a little bit richer. It's not as flat looking, but it also changes very quickly. And then these pieces take about an hour to paint, and after an hour, it's a completely different scene. And I told my wife yesterday, I've got to time it to finish about an hour before sunset. So, but it pushes me to make decisions, because it's easy to get thinking about all the different options for color and paintings, and there's so many options. It's better just to do something and look at it. And of these landscapes, I've probably done about 60 this year, and I'll keep 5 or 10.
What about with the studio paintings, and how you choose the subject and the time of day and things like that?
Well, the studio paintings are interiors. They're bigger paintings. This I just like the subject. I saw it when I walked into the room, and I liked it. I took a photograph and tried to capture that feeling that it had. And photographs, all they do is save me a lot of work in drawing out all the parts, and then I can adjust all the pieces. to try to make it look unified. There's stuff a photo can't catch. And they're a lot more laborious. They take, 90% of the work is just getting the information on the canvas, and then there's, a day or two of fun trying to adjust everything. This caught my eye, that and that together. This painting, I don't know if you can see it. I've done the custom house quite a few times. And this was painted when Portland was shut down in March. There was nothing going on. So it was a rainy day, kind of like today. It was cold, and nobody was out. But I've always liked that custom house building. And there's a few other paintings of it. There's one over here that's from the other side of the custom house building. This is the opposite side of it, in a snowstorm. And at night, in the snowstorms, I just love the atmosphere of a snow. When the snow is coming down, it's like a soft light throughout the whole city. And so I'm glad to go out and take pictures when that happens. I don't have too much.
I think you already answered the question, but there was a question about what particularly attracted you to that kitchen. And sort of you pointed to the dish towel and element in the back.
Well, it's my cousin's house, and I have a lot of good memories there. And they care about the house quite a bit, and it's very taken care of. So I'm proud to put that in a painting.
Got another question here. So some of these paintings seem to contain hybrid elements of very tight, realist work you've typically done in your architectural and interior paintings, and the looser, more gestural and textural style of your plein air paintings. Was this a conscious choice on your part? So some of these paintings that sort of fall in between the two?
Well, they're merging. I'm in the studio painting, little things, little candlesticks, and it's very delicate with a small brush. Then some days I leave the studio and I go out and do a plein air painting to relax, because there's still a lot of paint involved, but it's a little more, it's easier to conduct and make changes. But I like the craftsmanship. I've always enjoyed that, and it's methodical, meditative to do it. There's let's see.
I think like this one at the top here, it's a little more.
This one?
To the right. Yeah, it's a little looser. It's not as tight, but it's not the sort of plein air landscape either.
That's right. And today I was doing a painting, and none of these. I'm using the palette knife more to get the color on, which is kind of a nice way to work. This is a small version of a painting that's over there. This is a snowstorm. I came out of the dentist office and I saw that building. I've always liked it.
So what with the small version there, what role do studies play in your studio paintings? Is that typical, or?
Actually, it's not too typical. I know I have to, the big paintings are like turning up the volume on a stereo. You can hear them, you can see them better. They come to you more. And the small ones are not as intimidating. Because it's a lot of ground to cover when the painting's 2 by 3 feet. This is a good sized painting.
And that raises another one. There are 2 more down there. In the past, because even before these, we had a couple others. I think it was our holiday show last year. What's attracted you to these boats out of water?
Geez, John. I like the shape of them.
The way you see boats.
Right. Well, they're working boats. They're not in the something about the shape of a boat I've always enjoyed. And one of my earliest memories was I used to draw boats all the time when I was young. I always enjoyed that. I didn't paint these type of boats, but I've always enjoyed boats in the ocean. And there's something about them. They're getting worked on. They're waiting to go back to work. These paintings have kind of the house represents some kind of safe spot, and inside the house it's a place that is safe somehow, and the house is protecting you from that.
So you mentioned the use of the pallet knives. And are those, one of the questions here is whether on the plein air landscape, are those pallet knife marks on the thicker?
Yep. Yeah, this is a pallet knife, and I think that one by you, John, it's a little hard to see. This is a pallet knife mark, these white parts of the cloud, and a brush would smear the paint. Same with that. It would. It's hard to get a thick color, a strong color with paint. So I do both. This is a little bit of palette knife, and then a brush will do some stuff too. This was the first one I painted this year in August. I knew I wanted to get doing landscapes again. And where I go, I'm looking right into the sun at sunset. So unless it's a cloudy day, I can't go. I can go, but it's tricky. It's tricky to look into the sun and try to make something out of it. But on a cloudy day, it's great. And the clouds are different every day. This landscape doesn't change too much, but the clouds are always different.
Well, that was something else I was going to ask, because all the landscape paintings are all just titled by date.
Yep.
Whereas everything else is titled by location or subject. And is that because all of these landscapes are the same spot?
Yep. Yeah, except for that one, but the shape of the hill is about the same. And
do you use the palette knife in the other paintings, or is that just for the?
I did today, for the first time.
Oh.
Doing a painting of my wife. So you'll see him someday, like that.
Then can you talk a bit about the work with figures in it too? There are several in the show. There's a couple of the interiors with figures, and then there's a couple on the ponies.
Yeah, there are not too many figures too often. Oh, we got the horses down at Old Orchard Beach on Pine Point. And this is, I titled this painting, this yellow one, this yellow interior. My wife was in the picture, but there was a big bureau in the way, so I asked my daughter to pose, and I imposed it onto the picture, onto the painting. This is a part of the painting I like, right through here. And there's a good Danish painter. I forgot his name. Oh well. Anyway, that's a painting of that he did of his mother that I copied. Yeah. And she's standing in a hall. If she turned and looked this way, she'd see that view with the grandfather clock. And we were down in Annapolis for a wedding about a year and a half ago. And it's a beautiful home that we were at. And it got me through the winter doing a few paintings of it. And the people, these are deliberately, the subject matter is obviously something, but it's not going to be too antagonizing. It's a simple subject. Mostly you're there to enjoy the painting, the visual part of the painting. I'm not trying to make a statement about art history or, I'm trying to be neutral about that because honestly, I'm happy just to paint and play with colors.
At least all the interiors, I believe all the interiors in this show are all verticals, and they all have strong vertical elements. Mostly, I think all but one are doors, and then one has a long vertical window. And I'm just wondering if that's a conscious choice or if that's just something that happens.
Well, that's a good question. There's only a couple cityscapes in this show, one there and one here, but most of the buildings are vertical. So and I take a photograph, so the photograph's usually got to be a vertical photograph to get a sense of the size of the buildings and the scope of them.
Well, I mean, even but on the interior scenes too. I think
You're right.
The interiors are verticals, and they all have these tall doors, or one has a tall window.
Yeah.
I was wondering if that was intentional, or I mean, just the sort of scene that attracts you.
Yeah, the composition must be something that I like about that, to show the size of the room.
So what was the story with the ponies on the beach? Because that's a very different one from all the rest.
I know, they look so good. It was down there on the weekends, horses are on the beach, and it's just an exciting scene to see. So I thought I'd try doing a painting of it.
We also, one of the questions is, so in the show, perhaps more so than your last show, they all, and I'm not positive they all are, but the vast majority of them are Portland or its immediate environs. Was that because of the pandemic, or is that you just were painting Portland or around Portland?
Well, Portland is dear to me. I was born here. I grew up in Connecticut and came back here to go to art school in the 80s. In the past, I used to do New York City quite a bit, but I haven't done that for a bit. My mother volunteered at the library, so it got me into New York, but I haven't been back there too much in the last 5 or so years. So I like Portland. It's got a lot of history, and people are very proud of it. But any building anywhere, people have pride in their spaces all around. So mostly it's just scenes that I've come across in my life. I did make a trip out to Oregon last spring, and I did a bunch of plein air paintings from that. And there were lots of good scenes to paint. And I took a lot of photos, but it didn't have the same affection for doing a nice architectural building as I do around here.
Can you, another online question, can you talk about the significance of light in your paintings? It obviously plays a very important role.
Well, the color will get if the color is balanced correctly, it will have a nice balance between, they all complement each other. They'll all work together and be a stronger pieces. But there's two kinds of light. There's reflected light from their painting, and then there's light from the sun hitting someone on the sidewalk. These are more about the reflected light and how the color mixes between you and the painting. Or when I'm out looking at something, there's, you're seeing something, but it's in a context of the whole area.
We have this may be a difficult question to answer. describe your studio?
Oh.
Your studio set up, that sort of thing.
It's pretty sparse. It's in the State Theater building, and it's about 15 by 20, or it's about 12 by 15. It's not that big, but it's plenty big for me. Cement floor, hard floors. So I go in there and I make myself stay for at least 2 hours at a time. And I it's a nice place to go. It's warm. In the winter, it's warmer than my house. I do the crossword, I paint, then I go back to the crossword, and that keeps me going all day. So I'm lucky to have the studio. It's been a good spot for me. The studio had been full of paintings, and now there's nothing on the wall because it's all here. So it's like over the winter, I can slowly watch it grow, one piece at a time.
Who are some of your influences in your paintings? Do you feel your paintings reflect any of artists that you have loved growing up?
There's quite a few, yeah. Rembrandt, Cezanne, Hopper. So these painters, and when I'm painting these paintings, I'm thinking about there's many painters before me who have tackled the same things and tried to paint similar things, and it's nice to see how they deal with it or not. And it's a challenge to try to figure it out. It's hard. I find it hard to do. Sometimes I don't know what to do. Many times, but I gotta do something. And I'm better off just doing it and forgiving myself if I don't like it and putting it aside than trying to stick with it too much sometimes.
So you talked about working from photos a bit.
Yeah.
Can you talk about your process. Are you always working from your own photos? Is there just other photos that you see of scenes, and then with your own photos, talk about your process of going out and taking photos?
That makes a difference. It makes a difference where you are and what time of day it is. If I see something, I'll photograph it once or twice, but that's about it. I'll just have one or two photographs to go from. But it's pretty specific. Something that interests me is pretty, makes a difference if I'm here or if I'm 10 feet over there. 10 feet, it makes a difference to me, how everything is composed in the photo.
So do you go out on walks or out on excursions looking for subjects?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
No, not deliberately, unless it's snowing out. I'll pay on my wife that I'm going out, but I have a camera with me, and if something grabs my attention, I'll take a picture of it.
Okay, here's two questions that could either have the same answer or two different answers. We'll see. The first question is, what is your favorite piece in the show? And then the related question is, well, which was your favorite to paint?
Well, that's a good question.
Well, it's a bit unfair to choose between your children, but here we are.
Well, I like these big landscapes. I like that, the view of South Portland and the Willard Beach. And the South Portland one, I kind of knew ahead of time pretty much how to do it, what to do. And the Willard Beach one was late. I was there in the morning before the sun came up, and I wasn't sure how I was going to describe that. So, but the ones that are the most fun to paint are the landscapes, because I like being outside, and I'm pretty relaxed doing those. And the custom house took there's a lot of stuff to describe. So that was more of an exercise. That was a good exercise in being stubborn and staying with it. Some painters paint with acrylic paint first, and then they go over with oil. But I usually skip that and go straight to try to get it, as close as I can the first time, which usually doesn't happen. And my hand is always smearing the paint. I'm left-handed. So sometimes I start on the right side of the canvas and work left, then my hand stays cleaner. But it's hard to, it's hard. Because I didn't give anything to the gallery for, almost 2 years, then I could pick, there was a better collection of good pieces that I care about.
Are there pieces that you do that are not for commercial use, but just for your own enjoyment?
Sometimes, yeah. There's a few here and there. But it's more important that I sell the painting and keep painting, and then do a painting that they don't do me any good sitting around. I'd rather see them out in the world. So there's a few that I've kept, that are. There's a small little still life that my wife set up, and there's one of my son riding his bike. So those I kept, but not too many.
Can you talk about the palette you use, and do you limit the colors that you use?
Yeah, well, it's a pretty simple palette, and with the colors I probably have 10 or 15 colors, maybe, and from that I can pretty much find, you can pretty much make almost any color. Not exactly, but you can make a lot of colors from that. And there's another
question/comment. Your medium value is quite dark. Has that always been the case, or has your work just evolved in that direction?
Well, by making it dark or medium valued on the dark side, the white parts of the painting show up more. And in this painting, there's a little stripe there. That's pretty white. That would not look as white if everything else was lighter. So I'm relying on the value of the paint, the light and darkness of the paint, as much as I am the color. But you do have to use, without a high contrast of a high note, like a white or something close to white, the darks, it can get gray and muddy, which sometimes happens. But I'm trying to make it rich.
Does that help highlight the light?
Sometimes it does, but it doesn't always. Yeah. Like this one here, the whole painting is pretty dark except for this little spot right there. And sometimes it gives it a context. Or these paintings, these light colors here, they give the blue colors a reference point.
Here's a more general question. So what fuels you as an artist, and what revitalizes you so you can keep working once you kind of get tired or hit a wall?
Well, I'm pretty disciplined. I can, whether my mood's in the mood to paint or not, I do it. And if whether a painting will turn out well or not, regardless of my mood, or if I'm feeling creative or not. So it's more important that I just show up and put the time in. And my mood can, the mood, I can't escape it, but you have to show up to work. And sometimes it's worth it, and other times it's not. But sometimes I go to the studio and I sit down and I get up an hour later and just walk home. Well, I drive home.
So, photos. So, have you ever worked from a photo that you didn't take?
Yeah, sometimes I have. I found in historic images of scenes that I like. Sometimes I do that, yeah. Not too often. I like taking the pictures.
What is one landscape or place you have never painted but you'd love to?
Oh, probably Europe somewhere. Those old buildings in Europe. That'd be nice. Or the Utah, southern Utah, all the mesas in that dry color. But that might happen still. Well, I think we're doing pretty good. Do you think it's about time?
Yeah, let me see. Well, that's just a comment,
Are you a fan of N.C. Wyeth?
Yeah.
I feel like there's some tones that I recognize from N.C.'s work, these rooms here, I don't know if that's anything that stood out for you, but.
Yeah, his paintings I enjoy. Tends to be more of a story in his pieces, which I don't have as much. But yeah, I enjoy his paintings. And Norman Rockwell, he's very organized and composed. A little bit too clean for me, but I like them. They're systematic.
Well, you have a little narrative sometimes, don't you? I mean, because we had I believe it was the custom house from a year ago that had the street cart vendor.
Yeah.
So it sort of was like this nod to the sort of the modern human activity, what you'd see down there, instead of just the beautiful old building. And then, in stark contrast to the Corona custom house where, there's no evidence of human activity whatsoever in that one. And it's sort of even the view over there where it's sort of more just an average day scene with the cars and what's just briefly, what's the sort of, is it the Clara City one there?
Yeah.
I know that's going to be good.
I'll bring it over to you. This was driving out west to pick up my son to move him back to Portland. So this was in Missouri around sunset. And I liked the view. And I liked that red and the pink sky. This took a while to do because it's lots of detail.
This might be a good general question, though. And what inspired you to be an artist? What inspired you to be a painter?
I had to do something. And I was always good with my hands. I'm much better building something, and the paintings are a lot like building things, just with colors. I enjoyed doing it. Yeah, I'm not very, it's a good way I can express myself. And my dad would always want to talk about the paintings, and I would ask him to just look at the painting and enjoy it, and that's the answer right there.
And is that kind of, you hope people look at your paintings?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah. That's the story right there.
That is a good story.
Yeah.
I think that's the end of our online questions.
Good.
Yeah.
All right.
The points of light, the safe spaces you talked about in your houses, can you talk a little bit more about that? That's very interesting. That you've, you know, the idea of having one room lit or two, it's just very compelling. Is there anything you want to add to that?
Well, actually, someone else described my work that way. So, but I love the warm yellow color that you get at night coming from buildings. You know, everything's dark, but something's lit up, and people are alive in there. So I just like that color. And in the context of a dark night, it looks even better. And it's also our time of year. You know, we go in, the next 6 months are awfully dark in Maine, in Portland. So a lot of stuff happens inside. But I'm proud of this show. It looks good. I'm looking forward to doing more paintings. And when I look back at the older pieces, they do look sometimes. Sometimes I get backed into a corner of being too gray or too white or too black. So it's nice to see the more variety in the colors in the paintings.
Well, we think the show is absolutely beautiful. We love it.
Good. Well, thank you.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.